Welcome, Wargamers, to another Mid-Sussex YouTube channel video. I'm Chris, and today I'm doing another Build Me an Army Worthy Of. Last week was... who did I do? Gondor, that was it. My tournament army. And this week it's Rohan. And just a quick note that this is not necessarily the correct way to build an army, or the right way to build an army. But it's the way I like to do it. And so let's get into it. Yeah, as I said, this week is Rohan. And I'm going to film it like I did the Gondor one, where I lay my models out in front, so you can see sort of the majority of an army here, and how I'd put it together, because that is how I'd like to, if I already have the models, how I'd like to build an army for them is put all the models out in front of me, get my appropriate source book, and then take out stuff and add in stuff that I want. Got all my extra box of Rohan stuff there, brilliantly looked after, and over there in the tray there. So you can see I've got quite a lot of Rohan models, and apologies in advance that not much of it is painted. This army has been passed around between me and my friend, and now it's going to my brother. Now I'm selling it to him, because he will make better use of it and care for it more than I. Because Rohan, as you'll find out, is actually a very, very difficult army to build, and it's very, very difficult to use. It takes a lot of practice, which personally I don't have the patience for. I don't like it enough to practice with it. I will play games with them because they're fun. The heroes are so vital to the films, and really cool characters in the books and the films, as we'll see now. So we'll start off with some of the heroes and have a look what I think is best and what's not best to take. So let's start with, no better place to start than, again, sorry they're not all painted, Theoden, King of Rohan. This is the Warg Attack version, with no armour. There he is. And you can also get, on horse, the Helm's Deep version. There. He is very, very cool. And his matching dismount. And you can also get Pelennor version. And matching dismount. Now these two are the coolest. Theoden, he is not taken competitively at tournaments, and I wouldn't take him competitively at a tournament either, because he's pretty cheap, and he's fight 5, defense, fight 5, strength 4, defense 7 if you give him heavy armor and shield, which is good. 2 attacks, 2 wounds, that's okay. Courage 5, I think. 2 might, that's okay. 2 fate, that's okay, but no will, and that really lets him down, especially since you'd probably have him as your leader, being the King of Rohan. So if I were to take him, I wouldn't take him without armour. I wouldn't take him without a shield. I'd tool him up, put him on a horse, and yeah, that would be for theme, not for competitiveness. Maybe at a lower points cost where there wouldn't be as much magic around, he'd be quite fun to use. But the same could be said for his son, the heir of Rohan, Theodred. Now he's relatively cool. The foot version's got quite a cool pose. Well, this foot version is quite hard to get hold of as well. Hence why I've gone to so much effort not to paint him. He is pretty much the same stat line as his dad. Can be fight 5, strength 4, can be defense 7, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5, but he's got 3 might, which is cool. And let me just double check how much will he's got. I think he's got 3. Yeah, he has got 3 will as well, but no fate. Which again, let's Rohan down for their cool heroes. So competitively, probably not, but a low points cost where there are less big heroes, he'd actually be quite effective on a horse, rampaging round. 3 attacks on charge, 6 on the knockdown, defense 7. It's pretty decent. 3 might as well, and he's exactly the same cost as Theoden. So yeah, maybe, but not any higher than 500-600, I'd say. And again, the same goes for Grimbold. He's really there to upgrade your troops, because Rohan, like Gondor, don't have any access to strength 4 unless you take the elite Sons of Earl over there. or you can take Grimbold and a bunch of Warriors of Rohan and upgrade them for an extra point each to make them strength 4, which is very situational. You may not need it. So if you fight lots of defense 5, it makes no difference. If you fight defense 6, yeah, it makes a difference. But if you fight defense 7, it makes no difference. Yeah, so it's very situational. You're paying a lot of points for it. And Grimbold himself isn't the greatest hero. He's just a bog standard captain. So yeah, I'd probably leave him as well. And the same with Hammer, who I'm breaking. Hammer. There. I don't believe he has any fate either. Yeah, no, he doesn't. Probably because he dies quite quickly. And he's only fight 4. He is a bog standard captain as well. But he does have the bodyguard special rule, which replaces his fate points-wise, essentially. So again, he's not really useful. And now onto someone you may well take. A lot of people wouldn't pay the points for it, but I actually quite like it. I've used it to decent effect. Just having a triangle of heroes benefiting from this guy, Gamling with banner. There. Super cool model. I really like it. He is, like Hammer and Grimbold, a bog standard captain with fight 4, strength 4, defense 6, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. He's... sorry for the awkward cut, battery ran out. So yeah, as I was saying, you can take a horse for 10 points, which I would, because it the size of his base would cover more distance for using his banner. And the banner does cost an extra 50 points. But what it does, it acts as a normal banner, so you wouldn't have to pay extra points for this guy. Acts as an actual banner, and if there's any Rohan hero within 3 inches of it, and they're on 0 might, they regain 1 at the start of the phase, or at the start of the turn rather, which is actually really handy if you have this guy, and then you sort of have, for example, Theoden sat about here, and Theodred sat about here, and then you have your line of troops either side, your shield wall, and then Garen just sits there giving you rerolls, and then every turn Theodred's just like, yep, heroic move, Theodred's like, yep, heroic combat. Obviously they'll be on the horse as well, hopefully charging in. So yeah, it can be quite effective. So you're not worrying about might points. Also a good tactic is to put Merry next to him as well, who only starts with 1, and he can just sit there and go, yep, heroic move, yep, heroic move, yep, heroic move. Obviously you're putting quite a lot of points into it, but you could make it work quite effectively. So I kind of like Gamling. Again, not particularly competitive, but good fun nonetheless. So yeah, I'd add him in if I had the points spare. But we move on to 3 heroes that you'd pretty much always take, which is a shame for Rohan because everyone would always take these. And the first one you'd take, because he's so points efficient, is Erkenbrand. Let's put that in there. He's good. He costs less than Theodred and Theoden. He is fight 5, strength 4, defense 7, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, actually courage 6, but we'll come on to that. Might 3, 1 will, 1 fate. And he can take a horse for 10 points. And he has the Horn of Hammer Hand, and it's a war horn, which means it gives everyone in your force plus 2 courage rather than plus 1, which is cool. It's very, very cool. And I've just realised you can also combine this with Merry, and he can take the Horn of the Riddermark, which isn't listed as a war horn, so it's stacked, so you can give Rohan plus 3 courage. Stupid. But yeah, the reason Erkenbrand is taken so often is not only for the extra courage boost, which makes all your bog standard troops courage 5, good. He can also upgrade Riders of Rohan, as seen there, for an extra point from fight 3 to fight 4, which you would always do. Hell, at fight 3 to fight 4, that is good. You could then match the elite troops of other armies, like Urukai and Guards of the Fountain Court and whoever else, match their fight 4, and you then beat other basic troops such as orcs and other men. So yeah, Erkenbrand is a great addition to the army, so yes, definitely take him at any points cost. He can be effective, especially on his horse with defense 7. He can be effective anywhere on the battlefield. Another one, which is always taken, simply because it's so cheap, that's Eowyn. Shield Maiden of Rohan. She is super cheap. You can give her horse, armour, shield and throwing spears. You probably wouldn't give them all to her, you'd probably give her armour and a horse. Because otherwise she then starts racking up the points, and that's not the point of her. She's literally there because she's fight 5, strength 3, defense 3 base, attack 1, wound 1, courage 5, or courage 8 if you take Erkenbrand and Mary, might 2, will 2 and fate 2. So she's another good one to stick next to Gamling within 3 inches and just sit there and just go, yeah, right move, every turn. So on her horse, when she charges, she's 2 attacks, 4 attacks on knockdown. It's not half bad at fight 5 for the amount of points she is. Yeah, she just allows you to get in that extra cheap little warband for the extra models to boost up your numbers. So yeah, definitely those two. And the last one, and there's always a debate between these two because there's 2 versions of this guy. If you remember in the Mordor one, I said there was 2 versions of Shagrat. It's the same for Eomer. He's got his Marshal of the Riddermark version, which this profile was released in 2002 with the 2 towers. Fight 5, strength 4, defense 6 base, can be defense 7 with a shield. 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5, 3 might, 2 will, 2 fate. That is really good. And you can rack him up to be about the same points as Theoden, and that is much better because he's got the 2 war points. That's all to be said about that. He can be, yeah, defense 7, really good, 3 attacks on charge, 6 on the knockdown. That's the great thing about Rohan, and the tactics you'll find with this is you can get pretty cheap heroes. They're decent. You never get fight 6, which is a problem, and you never get strength 4 in the troops, but you get a lot of dice to fight with, and when you get the knockdown you get a lot of dice to wound. So Rohan, if it wins the fight, quite often kills, which is why it's a good idea to take Erkenbrand and make Rohan fight 4, because then it increases their chances even more of winning the fight if they're fighting fight 3 with the banner as well. Yeah, so if they win the fight and get the knockdown, they're gonna kill whatever they've charged. And Eomer is just reliable. Charging into chaff, he will kill it. But when he comes up against other bigger heroes, he may struggle with his fight 5, which is the only problem. And 2 attacks if he gets charged. But you can counter that. Still fight 5, which is a shame, but you can get the upgraded version, Knight of the Pelennor. No, this guy goes for quite a bit on eBay. I was lucky enough to get him like a week before he went out of production for £8 on GW. But this guy I love. He is fight 5, the same, strength 4, defense 7 base because he comes with heavy armor and shield. 3 attacks and 3 wounds, awesome, courage 5 still. 3 might, 3 will, 3 fate. So he's got 3s in all the right places there. And he can take an armoured horse. And he's got a cool special rule where if he charges, he's strength 5 until the end of the turn. So he is killing stuff. Again, the only thing that lets him down is the stupid fight 5. He should be fight 6. Because this is depicting him in his finest hour in the Return of the King. And that's the thing that lets Rohan down, is no fight 6 troops, which makes them really hard to use. But yeah, I'd probably take those 3 heroes, Eomer, Erkenbrand, Eowyn, because they can all run around, do their jobs quite reliably. And if I got the points, stick in Gamling as well, just topping up their might points. So yeah, that is the heroes. They are the 3 I would definitely take. Gamling is one I would maybe take, and Theoden I'd probably leave out. Theotrid I'd leave out. Grimbold leave out, and Hammer definitely leave out. He's even fallen over with embarrassment. So yeah, on to the troops. So, where better to start than with the Royal of Rohan, bog standard troop. You get 4 each of these if you buy them in the box. 4 with shield and throwing spear, and 4 with bow. Yeah, they're pretty standard. Fight 3, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3, or 5 if you take Erkenbrand. so they can go up to defense 5, and they're 4+ shoot value, so they're okay with strength 4 bows. They're just okay troops. They're not very good at anything, but they're not bad either, and they are cheap. So yeah, you'd throw a few of them in with Airwind, probably a warband of them, just to up the numbers. They can sit on objectives and shield and just be a nuisance, pretty much. Or you could just have a line of throwing spears, just throw a whole load of those into the oncoming army with a bunch of bows as well. So yeah, Warriors Rohan, definitely take a few of those. Banner Bearer, if you're taking gambling, there's no point, but I'd always take a banner. Banners are really handy, especially into the death. They give you victory points. I'd take them. Now on to the Riders of Rohan. This is where we start talking. Now Rohan is obviously home of the horselords, so you would take cavalry. And you can get a lot of cavalry. And the great thing is they automatically come with bows, so they don't count towards your bow limit. So you can max out 100% bows. And they're 4 upshoot value, the same as a Warrior of Rohan. They are a Warrior of Rohan on horse, and take throwing spears and shields. And because they're on a horse, and they're expert rider, they don't suffer the defense penalty for carrying a shield and a bow, which is cool. So they've really been given the bonus of not sort of like the counterweight for having poor heroes, but you see in the films Rohan are all about the riders. Obviously there's the Rohan charge Pelennor and AMA charge at Helm's Deep, so it's all about the horses, and it's resembled with how many you can take in an army. They're relatively cheap, and yeah, really effective. So if you're charging with one of these guys, 2 attacks on the charge, 4 on the knockdown, they're going to kill stuff. And if you can throw a spear on the way in as well, that's really cool. So these guys, and I'd definitely make them fight 4. It's worth the extra point with taking Oakenbrand. So yeah, I'd definitely take quite a few of them, a warband, maybe more. Maybe 18 of these guys. I'm sort of aiming for like a 750 army, something of that region. 18 of those guys. And then I'd take some of these guys. These guys are cool. These are the ultimate elite of Rohan. They are fight 4, good. Strength 4, oh, strength 4 troop. Defense 6, it's good. 2 attacks, oh, 1 wound and courage 4. They are quite pricey, but they do have 12-inch moving armoured horses, which is good. These are very good. You wouldn't want to take too many of these because it will sink your points very, very quickly. But a handful of these, 5 or 6, and they will do a very decent job. If they run in and charge against orcs, they are killing them. They're also decent against heroes, just pinning them down because their defense 6 can keep them alive. They can shield them off, and they're very cool looking. Yeah, they will get the job done. They can sprint quickly to objectives. They've got better courage than the Warrior of Rohan, so they'd be courage 6 with Erkenbrand. So they can sit on objective if you want, but they're very good combat troops. They're the ones you'd want to be sending in first. Sort of a good tactic would be have these guys lined up with these in reserve, charge the Sons of Erlin, let them do their thing, and then you got the next line of Riders of Rohan. If a couple of yours die, charge them in, and then you got the next line of Riders of Rohan ready to charge in. So you always keep some back in reserve. Don't try and charge them all in one go, because you'll just end up trapping yourself. They could all die in one go. So you do it in waves, basically. Is a tactic my friends used against me, and quite successfully. So one line would go, second line would go, because if you lose priority, essentially, Rohan's all about priority. Sort of going off on a tangent here. Rohan's all about priority. If you get priority and you charge, they're probably going to win the fight because they got a lot of dice, and they're probably going to kill because they got a lot of dice. Which is why, again, I go back to gambling. He's good use because he can keep might points topped up. Eowyn is a cheap might caddy for giving you heroic moves. So if this guy charges in and kills, and then say you lose priority and he gets trapped, you've then got these guys in reserve to then counter charge who's just surrounded you. Whereas if you charge them all in like so, you lose priority, you charge them in turn 1, charge turn 2, you lose priority, and they all get trapped. They're all probably going to die because they all get their base attacks because they haven't charged, and you haven't got anything in backup to help them. So yeah, that's a good little tactic for Rohan. Always keep some in reserve for the counter charge. And then I move on to my last troop that I own, and that is the Royal Guard. These guys are cool. They come in blisters of 3, and you can choose whether you have throwing spear or sword. The throwing spear costs 2 extra points, so it does make them quite pricey. Their fight 4 is good. Strength 3, which is a shame. Defense 6, base 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3, but they do have bodyguard. Yeah, these guys are good. Fight 4, defense 6. Just sit on an objective and shield stuff away while these guys go around the flanks, hacking stuff away. That is pretty much what I use them for. And they sit there, throw a spear, go into combat, shield, probably win the fight. Fight 4, 2 attacks with a banner, and then the riders go around the flanks killing stuff. And then the heroes go through the middle of the lines, probably just next to these guys, sort of something like Erkenbrand. So you got a line of your Royal Guard here, 5 or 6 probably, shielding away. These guys will chop through the middle here, and then the Sons of Earl go around on the flanks here, and then you got your backup riders around here. And that seems to work pretty well, and then eventually you bog your enemy down, push them in, push them in, push them in, until that's it. And they can't fight anymore. So yeah, that is what I do for a Rohan army. Just to recap, I'd take Knight of the Pelennor, usually over Marshal of the Riddermark, but the Marshal of the Riddermark's still good. But Knight of the Pelennor first if you've got the points. Erkenbrand, always. Eowyn, they'd be my 3 heroes. I'd take 6 Royal Guard, up to you whether you use throwing spears, if you've got the points. Probably 6 Sons of Ale, 5 or 6 of those. A good warband of Warriors of Rohan, 12. I'd give them to Eowyn because they'd be more of a backup warband. Probably give 8 of them throwing spears and shield and 4 of them bows. Wouldn't bother with just a shield. And then I'd have 18 riders. Westfold Red Shield, so it'd be fight 4. So yeah, that would be my army. And then if you need another hero just to lead more troops, I'd take Gamling because he's cool. So yeah, that is how I build my Rohan army. How would you build yours? And any other armies you'd like to see. So yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe. Like us on Facebook and follow us.